The SOS that triggered Earth's final defense fleet. Part 1. Captain Olivia Martinez yawned as she walked onto the bridge of the Earth Space Command ship Vigilant. The ship had been on its survey mission for 17 months, and each day felt longer than the last. The Arcturus sector was empty, or so everyone thought. 17 months of scanning planets, taking readings, and finding nothing but rocks and gas giants. Olivia was tired of rocks. "Morning, Captain," said Alan Wright, the communications officer. He was young and always too cheerful for the early shift. "Coffee? Please," she said, taking the cup he offered. The ship's coffee was terrible, but it was hot and had caffeine. That was enough. The bridge crew worked quietly at their stations, 5 people managing a ship designed for deep space exploration. The Vigilant wasn't a warship. It wasn't meant for fighting. It was a scientific vessel with minimal weapons, just enough to deal with space debris or the occasional meteor. "Another day, another empty sector," said Joe Keller, the ship's pilot. "At this rate, we'll be home in time for Christmas." "Christmas is 8 months away," said Olivia, sipping her coffee. "Exactly. At this rate, that's just in time," Joe replied, with a grin. Olivia was about to respond when Alan's console made a sound none of them had heard before. A high-pitched beep that cut through the normal hum of the bridge. "What is that?" Olivia asked, moving to stand behind Alan's chair. "I'm not sure," Alan said, his fingers moving quickly over his screen. "It's a signal. Faint, but definitely artificial." The bridge went quiet. In 17 months, they hadn't detected a single sign of intelligent life. Just rocks and gas and cosmic radiation. "Can you clean it up?" Olivia asked. Alan nodded, adjusting settings on his console. "It's repeating, the same pattern over and over." After a few minutes of work, Alan sent the audio to the main bridge speakers. A series of pulses filled the room. Strange sounds that clearly weren't natural. "Is that a language?" Joe asked. "I don't think so," said Emma Lee, the science officer. She had been quiet until now, listening carefully. "Look at the pattern. Those are prime numbers. 2 pulses, then 3, then 5, then 7. Followed by what seems to be a mathematical constant," added Alan, looking at his readings. "That's not random noise. That's a message designed to be recognized by any species that understands basic math." "Where is it coming from?" Olivia asked. Alan checked his instruments. "A star system about 12 light years from here, not on our survey route." "How long has the signal been traveling?" Emma asked. Alan's face grew serious as he calculated. "Based on the degradation, 78 years, Captain." The bridge fell silent again. 78 years. Whatever sent the message might not even exist anymore. "I'm running it through the translation matrix," Alan said. "It's not just mathematical sequences, there's more to it." The crew waited as the ship's computers worked. The translation matrix was designed to decode alien languages by finding patterns and comparing them to known linguistic structures. It was slow work, but after 20 minutes, words began to appear on Alan's screen. "I've got something," he said. "It's not complete, but they call themselves the Narindi." "What else?" Olivia asked. "They're in trouble," Alan said, his voice growing softer as he read. "They say, 'Please help us. We are the last.' They are coming for you next." "Who's coming?" Joe asked. Alan continued reading. "They call them the Void Reapers, a species that hunts and destroys other civilizations. The Narindi say they're being hunted to extinction." Emma moved to her science station. "I'm checking our database for any mention of either species." "Nothing," she reported after a moment. "Neither the Narindi nor these Void Reapers are in any Earth records." Olivia walked to the center of the bridge, thinking. Protocol for first contact was clear. "Observe, record, and report back to Earth Command. Do not engage without authorization." But this wasn't first contact. This was a warning that arrived 78 years too late. "Set course for the signal's origin," she ordered. "Captain?" Joe looked surprised. "Protocol says—" "I know what protocol says," Olivia interrupted, "but protocol wasn't written for this situation. If there's a species out there hunting other civilizations, Earth needs to know everything we can tell them. It's a 12-light-year journey, Emma pointed out. That would take us far off our assigned route. Then we'd better get started, Olivia said. Joe, plot the course. Alan, prepare a full report for Earth Command. Include everything we know about the signal. Emma, I want all sensors focused on that star system. I want to know what we're flying into. What about radio silence? Alan asked. Their mission orders had been clear. Maintain radio silence except in emergencies. Olivia looked at the message still scrolling across Alan's screen. Words from a civilization that might already be gone. Warning of a threat that might now be heading toward Earth. This qualifies as an emergency, she said. Send the report as soon as it's ready. Priority 1. As the crew moved to carry out her orders, Olivia returned to her chair. Her coffee was cold now, forgotten. 78 years. Such a long time for a message to travel. What would they find at the source? Ruins, survivors, or something worse? The Vigilant changed course, its engines humming as it accelerated. On Earth, the message they were about to send would trigger protocols that had never been used before, plans made for a day no one truly believed would come. Olivia didn't know it yet, but her decision to investigate a faint signal from a dying civilization would awaken Earth's most secret weapon, the Final Defense Fleet. Ships built in shadow, crewed by soldiers trained for a war they hoped would never happen. A fleet designed for a single purpose: to ensure humanity's survival against any threat, no matter the cost. As the Vigilant sped toward the unknown, 78 light-years away, something ancient and hungry continued its slow, methodical harvest of worlds. And Earth had just announced its presence in the darkness. The SOS that triggered Earth's Final Defense Fleet, part 2 deep beneath the lunar surface in a facility hidden from public knowledge, General Frank Cooper stood in a room filled with screens. The message from the Vigilant played again. Each time he heard it, his stomach tightened a little more. Play it once more, he said to the technician. The young woman nodded and tapped her screen. Captain Martinez's voice filled the room again, describing the signal from the Narindi and their warning about the Void Reapers. That's enough, Cooper said after a minute. He turned to the others in the room. 12 men and women in military uniforms representing all the major powers of Earth. The Joint Chiefs and the Secretary of Defense watched him, waiting. Ladies and gentlemen, Cooper said, his voice steady despite the fear in his gut. Protocol Omega has been initiated. The room filled with whispers. Protocol Omega was never meant to be used. It was a contingency plan created 50 years ago, after scientists began to worry about the Fermi paradox, the strange absence of alien life despite the mathematical certainty that it should exist. One possible answer to that paradox was too frightening to ignore. What if advanced civilizations were systematically eliminated? As a precaution, Earth had secretly built the Final Defense Fleet, ships with technology far beyond what was publicly known. These ships had never left their underground hangars. Their crews trained endlessly for a day everyone hoped would never arrive. The signal the Vigilant found matches the warning we received 20 years ago from the Arcturian signals, Cooper continued. The same species name, the Void Reapers. The same pattern of hunting civilizations. We dismissed it then as a coincidence or a misunderstanding. We can't dismiss it anymore. Secretary of Defense Elizabeth Carter leaned forward. What do we know about these Void Reapers? Very little, Cooper admitted. Based on the 2 signals we've received, they appear to be a predatory species that targets civilizations once they reach a certain technological level. They don't seem interested in resources or territory. They hunt intelligent life itself. And the Narindi? Asked Admiral Wu, one of the Joint Chiefs. Gone, most likely, Cooper said. Their signal traveled for 78 years. Whatever happened to them is long finished. The room fell silent as they considered the implications. An advanced alien civilization had been wiped out, and their final act was to warn others of the same fate. What's your recommendation, General? Secretary Carter asked. Cooper took a deep breath. We need to activate the Lazarus Protocol. Launch the Final Defense Fleet to meet the Vigilant. Send reconnaissance teams to the source of the Narindi signal. We need to know what we're facing. That's a massive undertaking, Admiral Wu pointed out. The fleet has never been deployed. The public doesn't even know it exists. We can maintain the secrecy, Cooper said. The fleet was designed to deploy, without detection. As for the size of the operation, yes, it's unprecedented, but so is the threat. Secretary Carter looked around the room, meeting the eyes of each person present. All in favor? One by one, hands raised. The vote was unanimous. Initiate the Lazarus Protocol, Carter ordered. Cooper nodded and pressed his palm to a scanner, on the wall. Command authorization, Cooper, Franklin J., General, Earth Defense Force. Code, Lazarus Rising. Alarms began to sound throughout the lunar base. In massive underground hangars, lights flickered on, illuminating sleek black ships, unlike anything in Earth's public space program. These vessels were built with a single purpose: to defend humanity from extinction. Lieutenant Susan Reed was running a routine training simulation when the alarm sounded. Her heart jumped into her throat. 5 years in the program, and she had never heard those alarms outside of drills. But this wasn't a drill. The pattern was wrong, the tone more urgent. All personnel to deployment stations, came the announcement over the base-wide system. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. Lazarus Protocol has been initiated. Susan sprinted toward her assigned ship, the Defender. All around her, other crew members ran to their posts, faces tight with a mixture of fear and determination. They had trained for this moment their entire careers, never truly believing it would come. The Defender was a warship, long and dark, built with technology that most of Earth's scientists would consider impossible. Artificial gravity, shields that could withstand meteorite impacts, weapons designed to disable or destroy vessels of unknown composition. It was humanity's best guess at what might be needed against an advanced alien threat. Susan reached her, stationed on the bridge just as Captain Greg Miller arrived. He was older than most of the crew, with gray hair and eyes that had seen combat in Earth's conflicts. This was different, though. This wasn't fighting other humans. Status report, Miller ordered as he took his chair. All systems online, reported the ship's engineer. Reactor at full capacity. Weapons systems armed and ready, added the tactical officer. Communications linked to Fleet Command, Susan said from her own station. Miller nodded, his expression grim. Ladies and gentlemen, we are about to make history. We are the first humans to deliberately seek contact with a hostile alien species. Our mission is to rendezvous with the survey vessel Vigilant, proceed to the source of the Narindi signal, and gather intelligence on the threat known as the Void Reapers. He paused, looking around at his crew. We don't know what we're facing. We don't know if our weapons will be effective. What we do know is that Earth is depending on us to be its eyes and ears, and if necessary, its first line of defense. The massive doors above the lunar hangar began to open, revealing the star-filled blackness of space. The Defender hummed as its engines powered up, lifting the ship gently from its berth. All ships, prepare for departure, came General Cooper's voice over the fleet channel. May God help us all. One by one, the ships of Earth's final defense fleet rose from their hidden base on the far side of the moon. 20 vessels of varying sizes and designs, each created for a specific role in humanity's last stand. They formed up in perfect formation, then accelerated away from Earth, invisible to conventional tracking systems. Susan watched on her screen as the blue marble of Earth grew smaller. She had always known this day might come. The question that haunted her now was simple. Would she ever see that blue marble again? The final defense fleet disappeared into the darkness of space, heading toward a distant star and the remains of a civilization that had tried to warn them. Behind them, Earth continued its peaceful orbit, its people unaware that their first interstellar war had just begun. The SOS that triggered Earth's final defense fleet, Part 3 Major George Wilson's scout vessel, the Swift, moved silently through space. They had arrived at the Narindi system 3 days ahead of the main fleet. Their mission was simple. Gather information and stay hidden. What do you see, Linda? George asked his science officer. Linda Palmer frowned at her screen. Nothing living, sir. The third planet shows signs of advanced civilization. Cities, road networks, what looked like power plants. But no movement. No heat signatures from living beings. George moved to look over her shoulder. The images showed a world of empty buildings and silent streets. A graveyard planet. Any indication of what happened? He asked. The readings are strange, Linda replied. The entire planet shows traces of some kind of energy extraction. It's as if something fed on the world itself. The bridge crew exchanged uneasy glances. They had all seen the briefings, read the reports about the Void Reapers, but seeing the evidence firsthand was different. What about the other planets? George asked. Same pattern, Linda said. We've detected ruins on 2 other worlds in this system. All show the same energy signature. Something harvested them. George returned to his chair, thinking. His orders were to observe and report, not to engage. The Swift was built for speed and stealth, not combat. If they encountered the enemy, they were to retreat immediately. Send a full report to the fleet, he ordered. Include all sensor data and images. Yes, sir, said the communications officer. As the report was being prepared, the ship's sensor suddenly came to life. Major, called out the sensor operator, his voice tight with alarm. Massive object emerging from subspace. On the main screen, space itself seemed to tear open. The rift grew larger, revealing something that defied easy description. It wasn't a ship in any conventional sense. It was a writhing mass of dark material that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Parts of it moved independently, like tentacles or appendages, while the central mass pulsed with an eerie rhythm. It was enormous, at least 20 times the size of the Swift. Evasive maneuvers, George ordered. Get us out of here. The pilot's hands flew over the controls, but before the Swift could turn, a beam of energy shot out from the alien entity. It wasn't a weapon, at least not one designed to destroy. Instead, it enveloped the human ship in a web of pulsing light. We're caught in some kind of tractor field, the pilot reported, struggling with the controls. Engines at maximum, but we're not moving. They're scanning us, Linda said, reading from her instruments. The beam is penetrating all our systems. They're inside our computers somehow. George felt cold sweat on his back. This was what they had feared. Technology far beyond human understanding. But he had one option left. One final protocol. Initiate Black Protocol, he ordered, his voice steady despite his fear. The bridge crew looked at him in shock. Black Protocol meant destroying their own ship to prevent the enemy from obtaining information about Earth. Sir? The first officer questioned. You heard me, George said firmly. Begin the countdown. 10 minutes. As the self-destruct sequence began, George moved to the communication station. Prepare a data burst. Everything we've learned, including scans of that thing out there. Encrypt it and set it to transmit just before detonation. Yes, sir, the communications officer replied, fingers moving rapidly over his console. George opened the ship-wide channel. Attention all crew. This is Major Wilson. We have encountered a Void Reaper vessel and are unable to break free. Black. Protocol has been initiated. 10 minutes to self-destruct. All personnel to emergency stations. The crew moved with practiced efficiency despite the grim news. They had trained for this possibility, even if none of them had truly believed it would happen. 5 minutes to detonation, announced the ship's computer in a calm voice. Outside, the alien vessel pulled them closer. Strange appendages extended toward the Swift, touching the hull in various places. They're cutting through, reported the security officer. Hull breach imminent in sections 7 and 12. Seal those sections, George ordered. Reroute all power to the reactor. If we're going to go, let's make it count. 2 minutes to detonation. Linda's console beeped with new information. Sir, I'm detecting a pattern in their energy field. There's a rhythm to it, almost like a heartbeat. George leaned forward. Can you target it, find a weakness? Linda worked feverishly, analyzing the data. Yes, there's a fluctuation every 8.3 seconds, a momentary drop in their field strength. Add that to the data burst, George ordered. That could be important. 1 minute to detonation. The hull groaned as the alien appendages began to penetrate deeper into the ship. Warning lights flashed across every console. Data burst ready, reported the communications officer. Send it. On my mark, George said, watching the countdown. 3, 2, 1, mark. The encrypted message shot away from the ship, directed toward the coordinates where the Earth fleet would arrive. It contained everything they had learned. The fate of the Narindi, the nature of the Reaper vessel, and most importantly, the potential weakness Linda had discovered. 30 seconds to detonation. George looked around at his crew, 27 men and women who had volunteered for a mission they knew might be one way. None of them showed fear now, only determination. It has been an honor serving with you. All, he said simply. 10 seconds to detonation. The alien vessel had almost engulfed the Swift now. Strange energies played across the hull, seeking entry, trying to stop what was coming. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and the Swift's reactor went critical. The antimatter containment field collapsed, releasing energy equivalent to a small sun. The explosion tore through both ships, momentarily creating a new star in the Narindi system. When the light faded, the observation drones left in the outer system recalibrated their sensors. What they saw was unexpected. The Reaper vessel was still there, but it was damaged. Part of its mass had been torn away. It moved erratically, like a wounded animal, before disappearing back into the subspace rift. The data burst from the Swift reached its destination. When the Earth fleet arrived 3 days later, they found the remains of the scout ship and the recordings of its final moments. They also found something no one had expected, evidence that the enemy could be hurt. Major George Wilson and his crew were gone, but their sacrifice had given humanity its first glimmer of hope. The Void Reapers were not invincible after all. The SOS that triggered Earth's final defense fleet, Part 4 Admiral Kelly Peterson stood on the bridge of the Defiant, the flagship of Earth's final defense fleet. The holographic display showed the remains of Major Wilson's scout ship scattered across space. The data burst from the Swift played on repeat as analysts studied every detail. They found a weakness, Kelly said, watching the recording for the 10th time. A pattern in the Reaper's energy field. A rhythm that fluctuates every 8.3 seconds. But what does it mean? Asked Captain Ben Harris, her second in command. How do we use that information? Before Kelly could answer, the communications officer called out, Admiral, we're picking up a signal. It's not from Earth or any of our ships. Kelly turned sharply. Source? The signal is coming from the edge of the system. It's using our own encryption protocols. The bridge fell silent. No one outside of Earth should know those protocols. Put it through, Kelly ordered. All stations on alert. The main screen flickered, then showed a face that wasn't human. The being had large compound eyes like an insect, with a hard exoskeleton covering its head. When it spoke, its mandibles clicked and moved in patterns that somehow produced understandable words. Earth vessels. I am Zix of the Collective. We have been watching you. Kelly stepped forward. This is Admiral Peterson of Earth's Defense Fleet. How do you know our language and encryption? We have been studying your broadcasts for years, Zix replied. We observe all species who might face the harvesters. Harvesters? You mean the Void Reapers? That is one name for them. We call them harvesters because that is what they do. They harvest the energy of intelligent life. Kelly glanced at her officers, then back at the screen. What is this collective you mentioned? We are survivors, Zix explained. Remnants of 12 species who escaped the harvesters. We hide, we watch, we gather information. For centuries we have studied the enemy, looking for a way to fight back. And have you found one? Kelly asked. Not until now, Zix said. Your scout vessel's attack. It damaged a harvester. This is unprecedented. Chief Engineer Paul Evans stepped forward. That wasn't even a weapon. It was just our FTL drives. Containment field collapsing. The alien's compound eyes seemed to shine with interest. The energy signature of your technology is disruptive to their biology. This is why we contacted you. We wish to meet. Kelly considered the request carefully. This could be a trap. But if these aliens truly had information about the Reapers, they couldn't afford to ignore them. "Where do you propose we meet?" she asked. "We have a hidden base in the asteroid belt of this system. We will send coordinates. Come with a small group. The harvester you damaged has left, but others may return." After the transmission ended, Kelly turned to her officers. "Thoughts? Could be a trap," Ben said immediately. "Or it could be our first real chance to understand what we're fighting," countered Paul. Kelly nodded. "Prepare a shuttle. I'll take a small team to meet this collective. The fleet will remain on high alert." 6 hours later, Kelly sat in a strange room carved into the center of a large asteroid. Around her were beings from species she had never imagined. Some looked almost like walking plants, others like floating crystals. Zix sat across from her, joined by representatives from each surviving species. "We have been watching your kind," Zix said. "You are young, but your approach is unexpected. Most species flee. You seek engagement." "Running hasn't worked well for the others," Kelly replied. "We prefer to face our threats directly." "This is why we believe an alliance may be possible," said another alien, a being made of shifting blue liquid contained in a transparent suit. "We have knowledge. You have the will to fight." For the next several hours, the collective shared what they knew. The Reapers weren't just predators, they were farmers. They seeded worlds with life, allowed civilizations to develop, and harvested them when their energy output reached optimal levels. "Earth wasn't randomly discovered," explained Zix. "It was cultivated for consumption since the first microbes appeared." Kelly felt cold at this revelation. Humanity's entire existence was like livestock being raised for slaughter. "How many of these harvesters exist?" she asked. "We have identified 17 queen vessels and approximately 200 lesser harvesters," replied one of the crystal beings. "They move between galaxies following patterns we have mapped over centuries. And they've never been defeated? In all that time?" "Never," Zix confirmed, "until your scout ship damaged one. This is why we believe your technology holds the key." Paul analyzed the data the collective provided. "It's our FTL drive," he said finally. "The way we manipulate space-time creates a field that disrupts their energy patterns. That's why the Swift's self-destruct was so effective. It wasn't just the explosion, it was the specific frequency of the energy release." "Can we weaponize that?" Kelly asked. Paul nodded slowly. "I think so. If we modify our ship's drive systems, we could create directed energy weapons that target the rhythm Linda discovered." For the first time since the mission began, Kelly felt a spark of hope. "Then we have work to do." The alliance was formalized that day. The collective provided crucial intelligence: the movements of the Reaper fleet, their feeding patterns, the locations of their next likely targets. In return, Earth shared its technology, particularly the FTL drive designs that might be the Reaper's weakness. As Kelly prepared to return to the Defiant, Zix approached her privately. "There is something else you should know," the alien said, quietly. "The harvesters are controlled by a central intelligence, a queen of queens. If it could be destroyed, the others would be vulnerable." Kelly finished the thought. "Yes, but no one has ever seen this queen of queens. We only know it exists because of communication patterns between the harvesters." Kelly nodded grimly. "Then we'll have to find it." She returned to her ship with new purpose. Humanity wasn't alone in this fight anymore, and for the first time in centuries, the hunted species of the galaxy had a weapon against the hunters. "Set course for Tau Ceti," she ordered as she reached the I bridge. "We're going to set a trap." The SOS that triggered Earth's final defense fleet. Part 5. The trap was set in the Tau Ceti system. Commander Ryan Baker felt sweat on his back as he waited in the shadow of a gas giant. His ship, the Invictus, was one of 50 vessels hidden throughout the system. At the center, looking vulnerable and alone, was a modified colony ship broadcasting on all frequencies. It announced the presence of a thriving human outpost, rich with the energy of intelligent life. "How long do you think before they take the bait?" asked his first officer, Megan Clark. "The collective says the Reapers can't resist a signal like this," Ryan replied, checking his instruments again. "They're drawn to it like moths to a flame." Let's hope they're right, Megan said. For 3 days, they waited. The Earth fleet and their new allies from the collective stayed hidden, weapons ready, modified with the technology that had accidentally damaged the Reaper vessel. On the 4th day, sensors across the fleet lit up with warnings. Subspace rift, forming, reported the tactical officer. It's big. Bigger than the one Major Wilson encountered. Ryan watched as space tore open near the colony ship. What emerged made his blood run cold. The Reaper vessel was massive, at least 3 times the size of the one that had destroyed the Swift. Its dark surface rippled and moved like a living thing. Long tendrils extended from its central mass, reaching toward the colony ship. That's a queen, said the collective advisor assigned to Ryan's ship. The alien's voice was hushed with fear. We've never seen one so close before. Steady, Ryan ordered his crew. Wait for the signal. The queen approached the bait, extending massive tendrils of dark energy. Just as it committed to the harvest, Admiral Peterson's voice came through the secure channel. Execute Phoenix Protocol. All ships engage. The coordinated attack caught the Reaper completely by surprise. 50 ships emerged simultaneously, each firing modified weapons that generated the disruption field. The Queen recoiled, its organic mechanical form convulsing as the fields interfered with its processes. But it was far from defenseless. Energy beams lashed out, instantly vaporizing 3 Earth vessels. Evasive maneuvers, Ryan shouted as a beam passed dangerously close to the Invictus. Continue firing. The space around the Queen filled with the disruption fields from Earth's ships. The massive entity thrashed, clearly in pain or distress. It tried to retreat toward the rift, but the fleet had positioned ships to cut off that escape route. Second wave now, Admiral Peterson commanded from the Defiant. From the outer system, the collective's ships appeared. They carried a weapon, developed jointly by human and collective scientists, a concentrated burst of the disruptive field, amplified and focused. When it struck the Queen, the effect was catastrophic. The massive entity began to collapse in on itself, its energy-absorbing capabilities turning inward. All ships, maximum distance, Peterson ordered. Ryan's pilot engaged the engines at full power, pulling the Invictus away from the dying Queen. On his screen, he watched as the creature's form began to implode. The resulting explosion created a flash that temporarily outshone Tau Ceti itself. When it faded, nothing remained of the Harvester Queen but dispersing particles. But victory came at a heavy cost. 17 Earth ships were destroyed, thousands of lives lost. The bridge of the Invictus was silent as they processed both their victory and their sacrifice. We got it, Megan said finally, breaking the silence. We actually killed a queen. Admiral, we're detecting something, reported the communications officer on the Defiant. The Queen was broadcasting when it died. We captured the signal. Kelly Peterson moved to the communication station. What kind of signal? It appears to be a distress call, the officer explained, and based on the patterns it was sending to multiple receivers. Can we trace them? Kelly asked. Yes. We've identified at least 12 receipt confirmations from different locations. We're mapping them now. A holographic star map appeared, showing points of light where other Reaper vessels had received the Queen's final transmission. They know we can hurt them now, Kelly said softly. They'll be coming for us. On the bridge of the Invictus, Ryan received a direct communication from Admiral Peterson. This was just the beginning, she said, her face showing both triumph and grim determination. But now we know they can be beaten, and we've shown the galaxy something it hasn't seen in millennia. What's that, Admiral? Ryan asked. That when pushed to the edge of extinction, humanity doesn't plead or hide. We fight back. In the days that followed, the alliance between Earth and the collective grew stronger. More surviving species came, out of hiding, drawn by the news that a Harvester Queen had been destroyed. They brought their own knowledge, their own technologies, their own determination to reclaim their right to exist. The information from the Queen's death proved invaluable. The broadcasts had revealed the locations of other Reaper vessels, including what appeared to be the Queen of Queens, the Central Intelligence that Zix had mentioned. Earth opened its shipyards, building more vessels equipped with the disruption field technology. The collective provided star maps showing the movements of the Reapers over centuries, allowing them to predict where they would strike next. For the first time, the hunted species of the galaxy had hope. The predators that had culled civilizations for millennia now faced organized resistance. And at the center of that resistance was humanity, a species that refused to accept extinction as inevitable. 6 months after the battle at Tau Ceti, a fleet of 100 ships from a dozen different species assembled in Earth orbit. It was the largest allied force in the history of the galaxy, brought together by a common enemy and a common goal: survival. Admiral Peterson stood before the assembled captains, both human and alien. Today we launch our first offensive operation against the harvesters. For too long they have seen us as nothing but food. Today they learn that we are not prey. We are not cattle to be harvested. We are the defenders of life itself. As the fleet prepared to depart, Peterson received one final message from Earth Command. General Cooper's face appeared on her screen. "Admiral, I never thought I'd live to see this day," he said. "When we built the final defense fleet, we thought we would be standing alone against the darkness. Instead, you've turned it into the vanguard of the largest alliance in history." "It all started with a distress signal," Peterson replied. "A warning that came too late for the Narindi but just in time for us. The signal that had triggered Earth's final defense fleet had done more than save humanity. It had changed the course of galactic history. The hunted had become hunters, and the Void Reapers faced an enemy they had never encountered before, a species that did not know how to surrender. The war for survival had begun, and humanity was leading the charge.